Good day, students. So, we will be discussing accounting for factory overhead, and the learning objectives are you have to identify the cost behavior, okay? And we know that your cost behavior are, you have three, right? So, you need to think of what are those. And likewise, we have to separate, okay, your mixed costs, or in this case we call it semi-variable cost. And then you are going to prepare the budget for factory overhead and differentiate it with the actual factory overhead and how you are going to record, no? Then you need to also distribute, no, your service costs, then your determination of the standard factory overhead, or you need to apply and record your actual and applied, okay? The series of activities that you need to do are the following in order for you to be able to apply your factory overhead. The reason we talk about the different cost behavior that there's a need for you to identify is for us to be able to formulate the cost function, no, of your factory overhead, and this would be your basis for us to be able to apply. And at the same time, you have to also accumulate your actual factory overhead, after which you would be able to already determine how much is the applied factory overhead, then make a recording of both, a recognition of both the actual and applied. Then, as a review, these are your cost behavior patterns, of which your semi-variable costs or your mixed costs are of two types, no? And the reason it is called semi-variable is type A and type B, because sometimes you are able to see step fixed cost or step variable cost, no? And also your mix. So let's take a look at the graph. So in this graph, this will be your step, diba? Variable cost, and this will be your mix cost. Kasi tingnan nyo yung sa graph, ito yung fixed cost, ito yan eh. Ito yung hanggang point na to yung mixed cost, and fixed cost rather, and then it increases as your volume increases or the driver increases. This one is a step, diba? Kaya tinawag nung una na semi-variable costs. Kasi sometimes nakikita niyo naman tong mga term na to, diba? Okay. Now, of course, when you talk about analyzing your semi-variable cost, your mixed cost, or step variable cost, in this particular case, no, ano yung wala dito sa techniques? By the way, in your observation method, aside from account classification method, may tinatawag tayong conference method. Okay? We know that this one is can we divide into two only? Yeah, pwedeng. Ano yan? The observation method is based on the judgment. Diba? and then you are going to use what quantitative means, no? And what are those? You have the high-low point method, which did make use of 2 points. Then your method of least squares, this will be also called algebraic. This is also called simple regression. Okay? Because you can also use your multiple regression. Diba? Kasi this is the same. No? Same. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your fifth will be using engineering method, which is also your time and motion study. Okay? So, ano yung tawag sa scatter graph method? This will be your visual fit. Okay? So, ang hindi natin pa nagagawa ay yung scatter graph, method of least squares, at saka observation method. So, you'll have a sample for that. Now, in order for us to budget, you are being reminded that you have to be able to include it in your operating plans, no? Wherein your operating plans will form part of your master budget. Then, yung reason kung bakit natin pinag-usapan yung mga techniques, kasi nga, hindi pwede dito ang mixed emotions or pagka nagpaplano, kailangan alam mo kung anong gusto mong direksyon to take. And we normally set a flexible budget that is, there should be different levels that you should set it because you should know what to expect. And sabing, again, planning and controlling. Why planning? Kasi budget will serve as your expectation, diba? Then, why controlling? Kasi you use it for variance analysis. You will use it for responsibility accounting. Okay? Although in our class, we won't be doing variance analysis, but rather we would do responsibility accounting. Okay? Then, how are you going to do it? Ayan, una, magjo-journal entry tayo saan? Sa general journal. Ng ano? Ng indirect materials tsaka indirect labor. And then all the other factory overhead, no? After we were able to make the entry in the general journal, we would also be recording this. So you're going to post it in your general ledger. Now, the question would be, do we need to have a subsidiary ledger? You are going to, the decision as to having a subsidiary ledger would be dependent upon the volume, no, of the accounts. Siyempre, pag masyadong madami, magsa-subsidiary ledger ka to make things simpler for us. Okay? These are the sample of your factory overhead account. Now, you need to determine which one will be, tingnan nyo nga, alin dito yung semi-variable. Of course, the effective work will be variable. Depreciation would be, we're going to assume it is straight line unless otherwise stated. So, this would be fixed. The employee fringe benefits, unless otherwise stated that it is based on production, then you can assume this is fixed, no? Then fuel will be what? Variable. Heat and light will be mixed. your indirect labor will be variable. By the way, why heat and light will be mixed? Kasi gamitin mo yan o hindi, meron kang babayaran. 'Di ba? Pag sa kuryente o indirect material will be variable. Insurance, normally, it is fixed. Why? Because yung premium na binabayaran mo dyan ay whether it be monthly, annually, quarterly, or semi-annual, the same. Diba? The salary of the janitor normally is fixed dahil hindi naman ito base sa production. Lubricants is variable. Maintenance is variable because it is as the needs arises. Likewise with materials handling. The overtime premium would depend on the number of hours, then that would be variable. The plant security will normally be fixed kasi pasweldo mo yan, no, sa mga tao na nagbabantay. Power will be mixed. Your property tax will be normally variable because it will depend on the area that you are occupying. Rent within the relevant range is fixed because it is contractual. Although in the long run, this would increase, no? Repair will be variable because as the need arises. The small tools will be variable, no? Hindi naman fixed yung ginagamit mo dyan. Pwedeng nadadagdagan. Spoilage will be depending upon on the cost that you have accumulated, but this will also be most often variable. Supplies will be variable. Telephone will be mixed cost. If depend, although pwede nyo isipin din na fixed to, but mas malamang ito na variable, no? Kakaunti ang fixed portion. Kasi pagka prepaid yan, purely prepaid, naman, wala namang opisinang nagpi-prepaid. Definitely, lined yan. So, kung nakalinya ka na telepono, merong fixed portion, merong variable portion. Kaya siya nagiging mix, no? Dahil pag postpaid, ganon. Water, ganon din, is mix. Gamitin mo o hindi, merong base amount na binabayaran. And then, compensation insurance, this, to simplify, pwedeng isipin mo na fixed, but at the point of view of the organization, syempre, pwede itong maging mix. Because but better if we're going to realize that mas variable siya, no? Kasi, yung worker mo, yung compensation ng worker mo would actually vary. And the insurance will be dependent upon the amount of the compensation. So, yon. Kaya ko lang sinabing fixed to simplify matter. But in reality, it's more of a variable. Okay? Now, if these are the sample, then what are we going to use in order for us to accumulate? You have your analysis sheets and you either use expense type or department type. No? Kasi yung department type, ito yung kung which unit of the business is directly involved in the cost incurred. No? Ito naman kasi, although pareha silang cause and effect, no? But the issue here is we look at the nature of the expense, no? Rather than who is the unit that would actually be directly involved with the incurred costs. Then, once you were able to schedule your fixed costs, no? Then we can be able to already prepare a journal entry. And we do assume that it is predictable. That's why it can be prepared ahead of time if we're going to have already the schedule. And this is a sample of the schedule of fixed costs, of which you have here the property tax and the depreciation, on a monthly basis. Then your general factory overhead expenses. Kasi ang factory overhead mo, pwede kasing traceable. No? Pwede rin namang everyone is benefited. So, if it cannot be identified with a specific department, then there is a need for us to allocate. Laging ganon. Pag hindi traceable, you have to allocate. And, anong sabi dito? Pwedeng bawat item, or ang gawin mo na lang, to simplify matter, ayan, at the end of the accounting period. No? So, nasa sa inyo, you are given the liberty to decide. But, ano lang yung crucial, you have to allocate. Okay? So, we are given a summary of the factory overhead. Ayan. Ito yung kanina pinag-uusapan natin na paano siya i-allocate. Diba? Kasi you have Department A, B, C. Unlike this one, indirect materials, indirect labor are traceable. The power and depreciation is also traceable with the machinery that they are using, no? Then power, of course, alam mo, kanya-kanya yan ng meter, di ba? So, ito lang yung i-allocate nyo, general and factory overhead expenses. Then, ayan na, yung service department. Siyempre, ang department kasi, dalawa yan, production at saka service. Alam natin na yung mga gastos nito, nakikinabang si production. So, kailangan ay i-allocate natin, no? So, kung i-allocate natin yan, kailangan mong malaman ang relationship. Ano? I-analyze nyo. Okay. And, kung ganun ang kwento, ano-ano yung gagamitin natin? Ito daw yung ginagamit na mga bases for you to be able to distribute the service cost. You have the floor space pagka maintenance, volume ng production pag inspection, then machine shop will be the amount, no, that you have recorded for your machinery and equipment. Then your number of workers in the human resources, the number of purchase orders. If you notice, ano ang basis? You have to determine the relationship. Most often, ano yung sabi natin nung nakaraan? Mas ano yung ginagamit? Cause and effect. Although meron pa kayong tatlong ibang basis. Diba? Ano na yon? Ilagay nyo ha. Yan ang magiging experience point nyo para review nyo. Ano na yung ginagamit ulit para makapag-allocate, makapag-distribute aside from cause and effect. O yan, syempre purchase, naapektuhan yung dami ng order mo. Ang human resource, dami ng tao mo. Sa shipping, gaano kadami yung siniship mo, yung weight niya, o dami ng ni-request mo, 'di ba? Na materyales. O pagdating sa tool room, dami ng oras na sinerbisyo mo sa mga departamento. So talagang you can directly relate itong basis for distribution. Okay. Now, ito yung method. No? And there are other terms for this method. So, hanapin nyo nga kung ano yung other terms. Okay? So, but, dito, ano yung ginamit natin? You have direct distribution, sequential, and algebraic. Okay? So, we'll have a sample for this for you to be able to allocate the service cost, no, as part of factory overhead. So, talaga namang pag sinabing overhead, ang inyong head, no? Daming kino-consider, 'di ba? So medyo challenging talaga pag factory overhead or manufacturing overhead. So dito magsasample tayo, no? Then the application, no, when you're applying or determining the standard cost of factory overhead, you need to know the reason. No? Kasi ano-ano daw by reason? Because of, you have to be relevant. Okay? Dahil hindi pa ito malalaman agad, kailangan mong magbigay ng information on a timely basis. Kaya, mag-a-apply ka, mag-estimate ka because you want it to be relevant, no? Kasi sabi dito, lalo na pag job order, dapat daw alam mo na kung magkano siya. Kaya mag-estimate ka talaga. Okay? And also, this can be reliable because you go through a different you go through different steps, no? And you would, ayan, abay, napaka-importante ng paniningil sa kliyente. Naibigay mo na ang serbisyo mo, naibigay mo na ang produkto mo. Dapat lang maningil ka. If you won't be able to apply it, no, then, paano ka makakapaningil? Dapat cost should have what? You should have a markup if we would like to bill the client. Diba? Okay. Now, and what are your methods for determining a predetermined factory overhead? Yung una kanginang pinag-usapan natin, you're talking about the service unit. Okay? Paano mo siya i-allocate? Yung kanyang yung actual cost ng service unit, i-allocate mo. Yung different methods kanina na pinag-usapan natin. Ito, yung pag-alam mo ng predetermined. Yung pag-alam mo ng standard. Okay? So, okay. This will be a percentage pagka direct labor cost. Bakit? Kasi cost over cost yan. O di percentage lang siya. Unlike this one, what you will get here will be the physical factor, no? And this one will be the physical factor as well. And your activity-based costing, you will be, of course, you have activities. So, it's more of the physical factor. Okay, your physical factor. Okay, let's see the sample. You see, if it is direct labor cost, yan, it's a percentage, no, of the amount of the direct labor cost. Then, if it is hours method, then you just determine the how many hours. Diba? Kaya sabi ko sa inyo, physical factor. Likewise, if it is machine hour, tingnan nyo, hindi nyo lang din kung gaano kadaming oras. Your activity based method, anong gagawin natin? You should know the driver, or you should know the basis. Ano yun? Di pwede yung number of purchase order, number of calls, ganun yan, no? At kailan daw ito ginagamit? Ito yung basis, no? Ayan. No? Unless otherwise stated. Okay? So, you have here a significant non-volume related cost. Hindi siya dependent doon sa dami ng pinuproduce mo. Diba? Ayan. How are we going to apply? Ito yung recording natin. Kasi if we have here the work in process, papasok dito yung direct materials, papasok dito yung direct labor, then papasok yung factory overhead. But it should be applied. No? Or, wag natin gamitin ito. O, sabihin nyo lang, wag nang applied is standard factory overhead. Diba? Diba? Kasi akala nyo actual. O, yan. So, tapos sa end of period, i-close mo lahat yung applied sa factory overhead. Kaya nagkakaroon kayo ng, pagka na-put up nyo na, nagkakaroon kayo ng under or applied. Diba? Na dito ang binigay sa inyong sample, ikinlow siya sa cost of goods sold, although there are other options. Pwede mo namang paghati-hatiin yan doon sa iyong product item of cost, such as the work in process, diba? Pwede yun. Yun yung isang method. Pero ito yung madalas na ginagamit. No? Kaya ito na lang gamitin natin. Okay? So, anong sabi? Pag under-applied debit, pag over-applied credit. Ba't ganun? Diba? Kasi, tingnan nyo yung ano natin. Ito yung applied factory overhead. Diba? Na i-credit yan. Ito yung balance yan. Kasi, kanina, dinebit mo sa work in process. Diba? Andito yan. Pumasok dito yung standard factory overhead. Dinidebit mo siya. And then, sa susunod, i-credit mo siya. Ano ba ang normal balance ng factory overhead? The actual na factory overhead, lahat yan naka-debit. Diba? Debit lahat yan. Debit, debit, debit. So, pag mas mataas, no? Pag higher ang credit, talagang over. Diba? Pag lower ang credit, mas kakaunti yung na-i-estimate mo. Intindihan? Kasi, ito yung nauna eh. I-apply mo, dinebit mo sa work in process at kinredit mo sa applied. Dahil, laging kinikredit ang applied, so, when it is being set up, kaya credit balance pag over, pag mas marami. Dahil debit balance ang actual factory overhead. Lahat ng ginagastos mo, expense to eh, 'di ba? Ano bang normal balance ng expense? Debit. Kaya debit ka ng debit, 'di ba? Klaro 'yon. So, kasi pwede nga ibigay lang sa iyo debit balance o credit balance. Or dapat alam mo pag sinabing under applied tsaka over applied kasi ito 'yan yung alam mo dapat yung ilalagay mo kung kailan siya i-debit at kailan siya i-credit. Okay? Now, the reason we're all doing this is because we need to be able to reflect a cost that is relevant na, reliable pa. Okay? So, in our FS, ito yan, period, tsaka product cost. At yung behavior, whether it is period or product cost, affected yan. Diba? So, kailangan sa iwan sa gusto nyo ay mag-allocate talaga tayo sa period cost at sa product cost. But, kanina yung pinag-usapan natin na service cost, ang affected doon yung product cost nyo. Yung pinag-usapan natin na pag-determine ng standard factory overhead o pag-apply, determine ang applied factory overhead, ang affected doon yung product cost. And I do remind you that the service costs, these are actual costs that we need to allocate. Okay? So, thank you for listening. Good day.